Hi, thank you for tuning in. And if you are new here, welcome. As you may know, I'm Dani Ellison. I'm a trauma recovery coach for Black women. I help them break generational cycles of narcissistic abuse by going no contact with abusive parents. If that is interesting to you, please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any new content. I am very excited today to be here with the lovely Miss Shannon Savoy. I'm going to let her introduce herself to you in just a moment. But we are talking today about her experience with going no contact with a parent. And I believe that by focusing there, we will touch on several other topics. This interview is following a recent conversation that I had with Stephanie Perry over on her channel about what to leave behind as you step into your new life. We talked about how no contact with a parent parallels no contact with abusive employers, with an abusive capitalist system, and just an abusive culture around being a Black woman in the US in general. So I'm excited to see what we get into today. Shannon, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Dani. So my name is Shannon Savoy. I'm the CEO of Narc Free Living, where I talk about narcissist abuse from a biblical perspective. So I'm a speaker, an advocate, a life coach, and I build communities for survivors of narcissist abuse so they feel comfortable telling their story so that it heals. So Dani's work and my work kind of go hand in hand. So I love that about both of our platforms. But I am what I call a system breaker. I'm committed to dismantling and disrupting narcissistic and demonic relationships through education, edification, and God's word. So I always say we help break the chains of narcissist abuse. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the powerful work that you do, for talking about narcissism, for talking about narcissism in the context of a church. That is a tall order, and I know that must not be easy um, for you to face the backlash that I'm sure comes along with that. So, yes, thank you for being a light and a presence in this conversation. I am looking forward. I know, some of your story, we talked about it, but I'm looking forward to learning more about your journey going no contact, how you healed from that decision, and what your challenges and your triumphs were. So yes, please tell us um, what your decision to go no contact was like and what prompted it.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about this, and I've talked about it on my channel as well. And I think it's important for people to understand that you can be a believer and not take people's mess. Okay, like this shirt says, "Saved but not soft." And we have I'm backtracking a little bit, but sometimes we have a mindset as believers that we have to be people's doormats, that we have to let people walk all over us, and that love is, just taking whatever somebody dishes out, even if it's your parent. So, I was married to a narcissistic sociopath. I was in a physically abusive, emotionally and psychologically abusive marriage. And God made a way of escape out of that marriage. And then once I got out of it, once you get out of it and you begin to really heal, you start to ask, well, how did I get in it? How did I get in it in the first place? If you know what I mean? So with me, I'm always looking at what my husband calls the root cause analysis. I'm always looking at the root of a thing. Like, okay, I got in this, but why was this familiar to me? Why didn't I walk away the first time? Why didn't, so I was asking a lot of questions. And once I was in the military for 23 years. And then once I retired, like God put me on this journey back to him, really put me on this journey of, I was what I call spiritual ICU. So I was in the wilderness trying to figure out what was going on, in my life. And I was in a depression. I had CPTSD, what they call cognitive PTSD, had high anxiety. And I realized I had been wrestling with those things on and off in my life. So I started to think, wait, what's going on here? And it wasn't to lay blame or anything like that. It was so that I could heal. So God began to show me patterns that were emerging in my family and with my mother in particular. And I was like, it was like a light bulb. So I began writing, like he just began to tell me to pay attention in certain situations. Because I left home when I was 18. So I'm 46 now. So I left home when I was 18. And at the time, I think I was 43 years old, about to turn 44. So I was 43 years old and didn't know my father, I just began to realize I was told lies on top of lies. And, God, when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. So when you're ready for the truth, God will reveal that thing to you. You just have to be able to handle. Like when we say that prayer, God exposed the snakes, you pray for the strength to be able to handle what he shows you. So whenever you praying for something, you got to realize he may show you something that's contrary to what you thought. So he began to show me the patterns that were emerging in my family. I was sexually abused when I was a child, and I went to my mother and she covered it up and pretended and act like it wasn't, like it didn't happen. It was just a lot. Whenever I brought something to her, it was all about her. It was never, it was all about, well, I couldn't cry because it made her sad. I couldn't express how I felt because it made her feel some kind of way. So, and then I just began to look at the patterns, and then I'm typing her this letter, right? And as I'm typing, I'm thinking, like, God shows me covert narcissists, and I like push back. I was like, not my mama. Not my mama. You don't talk about these mamas, okay? You can talk about daddy, but you better not talk about mama. So I'm reading it, and I look up covert narcissists, and I look up every sign. And of course, I don't diagnose, but I do discern. And I'm looking, and I'm like, no, God, no, God, no, God, not my mother, So as I'm writing that, it becomes clear. I accept the truth. Instead of fighting it, I accept the truth of who my mother is. I love her, I forgive her. But at that time, I was just like, I didn't want to believe it, but how could I not? All the sign, he laid it out for me. So I came to the conclusion. I sent her the letter, and World War III broke off in my family. I thought it was just going to be, oh, okay, I will be no contact, and you guys we can continue to have a family. And no, my family all turned on me, So I was like, oh, she must have told them some good, juicy lies about me, my own mother. So I had to go through a grieving process, but that's what led me, as I was writing that, I told her we could go to counseling, but no, God told me to go no contact because this is who she is. So I could choose to go around her, or I could choose to live my life outside of her. And that's what I did. And my life has been bomb ever since. So in a good way.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. I think it's important to mention that across the spectrum of children who choose to go no contact with parents, I don't think I have ever heard anyone say that they regretted their choice.
The only regret is not doing it sooner. It's not doing it sooner, not knowing sooner,
So let's back up a little bit. So when you realized that mom fit the profile of a covert narcissist, how did you sit with that? How did that impact you emotionally?
That rocked my world. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had been through it with the sociopath, but when I found out it was my mother, it affects you differently because I came from her. You know what I mean? So if she's one, what does that say about me? You know what I mean? It leaves you, it really rocked my whole world. Like, it did. It was like, what does it say about me? Am I the curse? Like all these things like came to my mind. Like, is anybody gonna believe me? Which I found out, you know what I mean? But it made me really, it shook my world. It shook my world like a snow globe. It did. It made me think, because everybody, in society paints a picture like mothers are all good. And when you find out, not that you think your mother is perfect, but even though she pretended to be, but people don't want to hear that. They look at something's wrong with you. If you say something about a mother, people look at you like, it can't possibly. No, this can't be like you. No, you can no contact with your mother. What's wrong with you? Call your mother. I'm like, it's not that simple. She's a narcissist. Like, narcissists don't hear you. So it's dealing with the backlash. It rocked my world.
Yeah, you really touched on the isolation of realizing that your mother has abused you habitually,
Yes.
because we're trained, we're conditioned to think of our mothers as nurturers, as soft places to land. And I know I have experienced, after being no contact, people say things like, well, what about the good things that your mom did?
Um,
Why don't you focus on that? Why don't you understand that she did the best that she could, and just, appreciate her anyway? You have to forgive, you have to give her some grace. And it's like they don't understand that when you're raised by a narcissist, you're taught to focus only on the good things that your parent does. You're
yeah.
only allowed to see them in this positive light. And anytime you try to bring to the table what they do that's not right, you're shamed, you're attacked, you're made to feel that you're crazy, right? They gaslight you.
Yes.
And that, coming into that realization that your mom has abused you, it's like new information for some reason,
It
even
is.
though you've known that the whole time.
Right.
So
That's good. And that's so true. And to think like, man, like I was being manipulated. And then I think about like we always defended her. So she would get us to defend her. You know, she wouldn't protect us, but we all as children, I'm the oldest of three. So we always had to protect her. And then like when she had situations, she would get us in her, in her she's an adult now. But if she didn't like somebody, we didn't like them either.
right.
Like it was no autonomy. Like we were so enmeshed. Her friends were our friends, and
Yes.
you know what I mean. And then our family, we were just an enmeshed family. Like I used to say family over everything. Like when you say brainwashed, when I look back on it, I was brainwashed, groomed, and conditioned to always think of her even before myself as a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people, you say that, but people don't really realize what that does to a child. It's not your place as a child, even as an adult child, to always place your parents' feelings over yours. The Bible says, love God or love yourself as you love your neighbor. That implies that you have to love yourself first, but not with the narcissistic parent. You love them. Whatever they say goes. It's all about them. That's it.
In many ways, in that relationship, you don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Your well-being, your reality, everything, your experience is a set of spare parts for your mom to use. So in the moment that she needs to undermine your reality, she'll do it. The moment that she needs to shatter your emotional well-being for her purpose, she'll do it. Right? The moment your comfort comes into opposition with her emotional need, you have to take that L. And there is no questioning, right? There's no emotional response. You can't
No,
get mad. You just have to take it
you just
and
have
be her punching bag. Be there
right.
to absorb whatever, I don't know, toxicity she has to release, right? That's your job.
Right. And just think, this is somebody who knows you.
Mhm.
She if you meet a narcissistic partner or somebody like that, they study you to get to know you, your strengths and weaknesses. But this is somebody who, from day one, has already assigned, as you grow older, grow up. She's studying you to figure out how to use your strengths and weaknesses to her advantage. So you're playing a chess game with somebody who was the vessel, brought you into this, was the vessel for you to be brought into this world. You're playing a chess game and you don't even know it. You're not even on the board. You're not even calculating or thinking that this is a game to this person. You know what I mean? You're thinking that, oh, this person loves me. Like it doesn't almost compute in your mind, like this person brought me into this world, but they don't love me. That's hard.
It is.
That's hard. And they use your strengths and weaknesses. They come in knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and they use them to their advantage. And it's chess, not checkers. It's like Survivor. They're here to outwit, outplay, outlast you, and they know everything about you to be able to do that, or they think they know everything about you.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's so. So actually, I don't want to breeze by that, because that is a big deal. And I think a lot of women struggle.
Mm,
What you said about my mother brought me into the world, but she doesn't love me. It's like,
mm,
how can you even say that? How can you, but your mother, she's your mother. Of course she loves you, right?
right.
You're, of course, somehow you've missed the point. You're being dramatic. You're upset about something. You need to just calm down and forgive and talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you come to terms? How do you come to believe that your mother does not love you?
Like you have to stay rooted in reality with the narcissist. I can choose, and it is a choice. I can choose to live in her fantasy world of make believe and, you know, fake flawless, you know, fake, you know, all of that. Or I can choose to be rooted in reality. And in order to heal, you have to stay rooted in reality. And that's why a lot of people don't heal. It's too hard. Saying that it's too hard for them to face. So rather than face the truth, they stay in the narcissist world of make believe, because facing the truth means that you have to face the ugly. If you have to face the ugly parts of you, you have to face the ugly parts of yourself, you have to face the ugly parts of your family, you have to face reality. And just like a narcissist children, if they don't do that, they will stay in the narcissist world. So I choose to come out of that world of fakery, foolishness, and buffoonery, and walk in reality. So it is a choice, and it is too hard for some people to do.
Mhm.
It is.
Yeah, it causes an entire shift in your identity, right? It causes a crisis of identity. And it's possible to come out on the other side of that for sure. But I think for some, that is a very tall order, and they're not willing to lose, because you have to lose everything. You really, in a way, have to sacrifice every part of the reality that you've come to know. It's
Yeah.
like breaking out of the matrix. Everything you thought you knew is false.
Yes. You're taking a red pill.
Mhm. Yes, for sure.
Mhm.
And so you also mentioned something about the narcissist parent, how calculating they can be. We talked about how they're not able to love their children, right? Actual clinical narcissists are not capable of love. They're not capable of empathy. They are capable of mirroring those things to get what they want, but they don't actually have a cohesive identity. So they're not able to truly be loving or genuine,
Right.
right? Or understanding. They're not actually able to possess those things.
Mhm.
um, I think something we often overlook is that narcissistic parents can get to the point that they'll sacrifice the life of their child. It can become life or death for some of us.
Mhm.
And so I think when we talk about no contact, it's important to underline what the motivation is for staying no contact, right? Why is it that forgiveness is not the solution here,
Mhm.
right? Why is family therapy not the solution?
Right, because you're just gonna be gaslit. If you go to therapy with a narcissist, they're a lot of times they're gonna pull the therapist, you know. So therapy, and I said that in my letter. I was like, we can go to therapy, but then I was like, no, why would I go to therapy with someone who is a pathological liar?
Right.
Like, you've lied to me my whole life. So now why would I think because we're in a therapist's office or something like that that you're going to tell the truth? Narcissists are a lot of times incapable of just being honest. You know, it's that shame. They have that shame. They cannot face who they are, you know. So rather than do that, that false self is going to protect them at all costs. So if it's you or the narcissist is going to choose themselves, even if it's their child, you know. So we see this all the time where we see, I don't know if you heard the story of like Diane Downs. She had a book. It was called Small Sacrifice, or Diane didn't have the book, but someone made her story into a book that was called Small Sacrifices. And I remember reading this book when I was younger. And Diane Downs was a woman. I don't think she was ended up diagnosed as bipolar or something like that, or highly narcissistic, in the very least. But she ended up shooting her 3 kids, killing, I think, 2 of them, because she was dating a man who didn't want kids. So like Susan Smith. So these are narcissists. These are narcissists. Whatever I don't diagnose, but I discern. These are narcissists. And this happens, they went far, but it happens on a smaller scale in our lives every day. When I told my mother that her husband molested me, I knew then that I was a small sacrifice for her to stay in that marriage. So me and my brothers and sisters would come to her and tell her things, but it didn't matter because we were sacrifices. She sacrificed us in order to be in that marriage. And it didn't matter what happened to us. It didn't matter who was around us. All it mattered was that she wanted what she wanted. And if she had to sacrifice her children in order to maintain her lifestyle, then she was going to do that. And narcissistic parents do that every day. They don't care about you. They care about how they can use you to accomplish their goals. So if I was a small sacrifice, and I had to be real, like that's hard to say, you know what I mean? But I had to keep it real with myself. That's exactly what it was. I was a small sacrifice.
Right. So then share with us how you went about transitioning from being subjugate to your mother, right? Submitted to her in some way, and then realizing that she's an abuser. She's not someone who has your best interest at heart, and therefore you will no longer be submitted to her. And then stepping into your own as you go no contact. What was that process like?
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna go look, I gotta keep it biblical, right? So in order to be in a narcissistic relationship, narcissists, just like you said, you have to be submitted to them. Narcissists, I don't care if they go to church all day, Sunday, every day, they are not submitted to God in heart. You know, like the Bible says, they say they love God, but their hearts are far removed. And a narcissist is a great example of that. They say, many of us I was raised in church. That's one thing I really thank my mother for is you know, being going to church and having that foundation. Now I had a foundation, but I didn't have a true relationship. I had to find that later on. But I was submitted to her in a way. She was whatever she wanted came over God. So this is how a lot of children end up in debt in college and in different situations. Because their parents want them to be doctors and lawyers and physicians and whoever. So it's not about what God wants, God's plan for their life. It's about what I want, because I want narcissistic supply. I want to be able to brag on you and your accomplishments when I'm sitting on the soccer field or at the dinner table. I want to be able to tell people this is what my child has done. So they don't really see God. What they want for their children becomes first. So the child learns to put their mother and father's wishes, all right, and we're talking about mothers in this case, they learn to put what their mother wants even above God. So I had to repent for idolatry and come out of that. And even though God says, honor thy father and mother, he still says place no idolatry is number one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I had to come out of that idolatry mindset and put God in his rightful place. And then, you know, I made a choice. You know, she has a choice to be this way. And so I have a choice to walk away from it and no longer be submitted to her or society and what society has placed on me. Because as long as I'm submitted to society's standards, I cannot be who God has told me to be, who God has called me to be. And so if you remain in that situation, submitted to a narcissist, you cannot please God. No man can serve two masters, but you will love one and hate the other. So it's the same thing, but we don't think of it in terms of parents. It's the same thing. If that parent is not willing to you know, submit to God truly, then I have a choice. You have a choice. And that's what people don't realize, that they have choices. So in order to really walk in God's design for you, you're gonna have to walk away from people pleasing, from people, even your parents. That's the only way you can walk into the fullness of who God has called you to be.
So very true. Did you struggle at all once mom was no longer in the picture? You struggled?
Like how?
Was there any sort of an emotional fallout? I know you mentioned grieving, so there was a mourning process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever struggle to show up to your life without your mom?
Uh, no. What I did, let me tell you the honest to God truth. Like, I grieved them for 3 days. Like, that's I grieved my family. So I'm a fighter. Like, I'm a go-getter. You know what I mean? By design. But while I was with them, like, my dreams were stifled, because God is not going to reveal all of who you are when you're under the wrong covering, you're submitted to the wrong thing. He's not going to reveal all of his glory in you. It is just not. So things about me weren't revealed until I got from under the curses of my family. Let's be honest, until I got from under Jezebel's rule. But I grieved them. I allowed myself 3 days to grieve, and it was ugly. When I tell you it was ugly, like, even my daughter, she was 17 at the time. Like, she saw me at my lowest, my husband. Like, it was ugly. But I said, you know what? I can choose to sit here and allow this situation to rule my life and reign my life, or I can use this to help somebody else. And so I said, okay, it was on that third day, I got up and I said, okay, God. And the next month, I formed this business and this ministry. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to talk. And it took me a while, because, your mouth gets silenced when you're attacked by Jezebel's darts, So I had went no contact. I learned that my family wasn't going to be there. So it was lonely. It was isolating. You really learned during that time who is who in your life. And I learned who was who. People that I thought were gonna, stand by me. You look around and they standing on the other side. So I couldn't do anything but respect that and go on with my life. And that's what I chose to do. So as long as you're under a narcissist, your life is not going to be, you can't be who God has called you to be, because you're in submission to someone. You're in submission to someone other than God.
Yes, definitely. You mentioned that divorcing a narcissist caused you to see the narcissism in your relationship with your mom. Once you had no contact with mom, did you see abuse or narcissism in any other areas of your life?
Everywhere.
Yes, tell me what else?
Everywhere. Like, once you take the pill, once God awakens you and you walk by the Spirit, you're born again, you start to see how prevalent. And it's not so you can go around saying you're a narcissist. Everybody, you can't say everybody's a narcissist. You know what I mean? But you start to see this thing is more prevalent than what psychology's 1 or 6%, whatever that you start to see. Oh no, this thing. You start looking at your dating history. I'm like, oh, these were lower level. I didn't. Oh my goodness, you're gonna start to see a lot of people around you, but you couldn't see because you were unhealthy too. I couldn't see because I was unhealthy. I was, under a spell. I was, unawakened. So, but once those scales come off, yeah. And so that's when you see God is going to shake the table if you allow him to. He's going to shake the table, and your whole life, your whole circle, everything around you is going to change, and it has to. Because you're going to go higher if you allow him to. So yeah, but it's like that meme where it says, I see narcissists. Like, you're gonna see narcissists everywhere around you.
Absolutely.
Did that happen with you?
Well, oh yeah, it was everywhere. I thought that no contact with one person was just going to be no contact with that person.
Yes.
But then everyone, all the mutual connections were affected. Everyone felt a way about me going no contact with my mom. Even the people who had observed the abuse over the years and saw me when I was like, jacked up and crying and in crisis because of the most recent blowout between us. When I finally ended it, it was still like, that's your mom. You need to call people. The same people still say those things to me now. I hope you fix your relationship with mom. Call her. Have you forgiven her? Soften your heart. Talk to her.
They think that you don't forgive her because you're no contact. Like, 2 things. That's why I tell people 2 things can be true. But in some people's mind, they don't think that. Like, I can love my mother and forgive her and be no contact. Like that's like, it just doesn't register in people's mind. And so, and I'm glad you said that. I'm sorry you went through that, because I know I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, and then when I went through like the Facebook list, cleaning up social media, I was like, we had over 100 and something mutual connect with that's not even healthy. It's not even healthy. You know what I mean? Like, between my mother and my brother, like, we had all these connections, and that's what they do. They get in. They know how to get into their friends become your friends, because once you leave, they have to be able to influence you through those people, those flying monkeys. They're flying monkeys, and they don't even, enablers, and they don't even realize what they're asking you to do. They're asking you to reconnect, to reestablish a soul tie, a demonic soul tie. They don't know what they're asking you to do. They only see it on a surface level. They don't see what's going on in the spirit, and that's dangerous. And I had to be very protective of myself. So I don't even talk. When somebody say that, I'm like, I love you, but I'm very protective of me. So,
you know, that's funny, because something that a parallel I've thought of before, it's almost like when you are in no contact and you're trying to tell people that you've been abused, that narcissistic abuse is what is surrounding you. It's almost like, as Jesus was being crucified, the more that he, even though at a certain point he stopped talking, right? But the more that he shared with them that he was innocent, it's like the more angry they got, right? The more determined they were to put him on the cross. It's like, I could try to help you understand what level this abuse exists on, but if you were to see it, it would crumble your reality. So you refuse to see it.
Right.
You have to crucify me. That's the only thing that will put you at ease, is if I'm crucified, even though I am the victim, right? Being re-victimized by the people who share your experience with the narcissist but have not discovered it yet is common across the board.
Right. That's such a good point. And then you realize you're trying to explain things to people. And I know for me, God told me, it's like, stop explaining to these people. Like, let me watch, just sit back, let me defend you. And that's what I had to do. But the first time I was like, oh no, y'all, I was, oh no, I didn't do it like that. When I look back at myself, I was like, man, I wish I wouldn't have did that, because I was disempowered. I was unempowered at that time, and I wasn't walking in my true power then. So, I was looking for people who weren't even valid to validate me, to validate my story. Now I got to the point, I don't care who you believe. You can believe the lies of whoever, but I'm going to walk in what I know is the truth. And one thing about it, it may take years, it may take centuries, but the truth is revealed. So all I have to do is sit back, let my life work speak for itself, let God's fruit, let his glory bear fruit in my life. Because one thing about it, that fruit don't lie.
Yeah.
You can look at my family's life and look at my life. I've always been different. I've always been different. I've always been different than them. Oh, you think you're better? No, I don't think I'm better. I didn't know then that they saw what I didn't see in myself. So now I don't care what you say about me. Believe it. Go back and believe it twice. Go back and hear it twice for good measure. You know what I mean? But don't come over here with me with it, because I don't care. Because I don't care. I don't care. Because I know who I am in Christ.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You have to let go of caring about the approval, because if you care about the approval, then you have to care about the criticism, and that will keep you trapped, right? That's the shackle, because now you're trying to get out from underneath the shame that somebody else wants to put on you. And when you let it go, they can't control you.
Right. If you live by their love, you will die by their hate. And I don't live by anybody's love or their hate. What they say is of no effect. It matters what God says. So as long as I'm right with him and I'm treating people right by him, I've treated them well. That's the good thing. So I've treated you well while you were in my life. So now I can walk away with a clear conscience, with a pure heart, knowing that I did what I was supposed to do while you were in my life. God's word says to guard your heart. It didn't say give your heart, but just not to your mama. It applies to the world, but it doesn't apply to your mama.
Right.
It doesn't say that. He says to guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. So if you keep giving your heart to someone who, casting your pearls to someone who has shown you that they're just going to trample over it, that they are not incapable of loving you, then you become the fool. And I'm not playing anybody's fool anymore.
Yeah. Yes. I'm curious, was there any sort of punishment that followed your decision to go no contact?
Ooh, like from other people?
From maybe indirectly from mom, maybe it was fine.
Well, I blocked her. I hadn't had contact with her the week before, because I started, like, guys, I was starting looking at her. So like I started seeing things. So I was like, I'm just gonna lay low. So I hadn't texted her before I went no contact, probably a week before then. I think she, because they can sense stuff. They sense things in the atmosphere. So I didn't text her back or call her back after she called me the last time she talked to me, because I was just trying to figure things out. And so I think she knew something was going on, because they know, usually I'll be just, right back or call her back or whatever. So I think she could sense something, but then I sent her the letter. I don't recommend doing that to everybody, but I blew the supply up, because I burn a bridge up. It didn't look. I burned it up. I burnt that bridge up because it wasn't any going back over it. So I sent her the letter. And like I said, hell shook loose or something. Then my brother ended up coming to my house and cursing me out. And that's when I realized that, oh, you want too. I saw the demons and shapeshifted and all that. I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up having to call the police and getting a peace order against my own brother. And it recorded some of it on the Vivint system. And I sent that to my family. And I was like, oh, so they gonna see that is not me.
Mm-mm.
Radio silence.
Wow.
And a couple called me, oh no, just forget it. It's your it's. I was like, oh, so y'all don't care about me. Right. And that's when I learned that a system, whether it's a family system, whether it's a narcissistic system, whether it's a narcissistic church, a judge, a courtroom, I said, oh, so that's when I learned that if you're in a narcissistic system, the system is never there to protect you, it's there to protect the system. Right. So I said, they are incapable of, at this time, of caring about me, because they benefit from her, because she's like, the fun and the cooking and all that. So they benefit from her. So it's easier for them to lose me than it is to lose her. So that's their choice. So I was like, okay, but the backlash was ugly. Yeah. It was ugly because it was from people that I thought loved me. You know what I mean? That I grew up around, like y'all know me. That's what I was thinking. Like, my character. Like, y'all know these people been lying. There may be a lot of things, but a liar I am not. Like, like, this is your sister, like, to my uncles. I'm like, things she's lied about. But they benefit some way. So I was like, I respect their choices to choose her, to choose to do whatever they do. And likewise, I have choices. And I have a choice to walk away from all of y'all, because all of y'all, something wrong with all y'all, and I'm getting out of here. I'm not going down with this ship.
Right.
Yeah, so it was major backlash.
Right. You have to give up everything to protect yourself.
Yes.
So I'm just curious about this. I haven't asked you this yet, but you mentioned you were in the Army for 23 years. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you see any narcissistic parallels between a narcissistic parent and being in the service, or being a Black woman in the U.S. serving. Are there any parallels there that occurred to you?
Oh, that's a good question. There are a lot of parallels. Let's see, with being a Black woman. Well, first of all, I mean, it's another thing where we're taught to, like, put everybody first. So, like, even in the military, I learned again to put everyone, above myself. So it was like going from one system to another system, even though that system, I end up pulling out the good that was in that. But I still see that I was still surrounded by a lot of narcissists, even when I reported abuse in the military, and I was, an officer in the military, and it still protected my ex in a lot of ways. So no matter whether it's military, no matter if it's a system, and then, you know, I was a black female officer. It was a lot of microaggression. It was, I mean, you see it all around you, you know what I mean? And when they say only the it's survival of the fittest, only the strong survive, like you have to be strong mentally to make it in any of, whether it's a narcissistic system, whether it's the military, whether it's the narcissistic family. Truly only the strong survive, you know, out of that. So yeah, just looking back, I just see how it just made me see how systems protect systems.
Mm.
Yeah.
They say narcissists are kept in place by systems of
Mm-hmm.
enablers.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're not the only one who knows that the narcissist is how they are, you're just the only one who's willing to voice it, who's not willing to accept it and buy into the system that keeps them going.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Where did you write that? Did you read that somewhere? I've never heard that like that. That's good.
Yeah, I think I came across that saying that narcissists are kept in power by systems,
Right.
in a support group.
Right.
Yes, and that's why you have, usually with parents, like most of the time you have one parent who is the leading narcissist, and then you have the enabling parent who becomes a narcissist by default because they're following suit with this narcissist who is, you know, has power over the entire family system. They're aware of it. They play into it because it's easier than challenging the system.
Right. And okay, so that goes, see, I didn't even know that, but that goes right into why I say I'm a system disruptor. Because I would tear all down your system. I would blow your spot up, you know. But you're exactly right, because you can't have a Jezebel without an Ahab. You can't have a narcissist without flying monkeys and enabler. And those are the people. And that's why I don't play, you know, and I was a flying monkey for my mother. I was a flying monkey for my family, and I had to repent. That God's gonna hold you accountable if you upholding wrong people. So people love to quote the Bible and honor and all that. Hey, how about we talk about some of this accountability? So if you are enabling your narcissistic pastor, you know abuse is going on, you know abuse is going on in your family, you know abuse is going on in your home, and you sit back and you don't say anything, how about we put some scripture on that? How about God's gonna hold you accountable? Don't you know that? So we love to throw scripture around when it comes to narcissistic parents, but those who enable you, they're gonna be held accountable too. So that's why I had to repent for that. God, forgive me for being an enabler. Forgive me for not looking into situations, you know, when things were presented to me. Forgive me for that. So yeah, that's a good point.
Well, so let's see. We haven't touched on it yet. I know you talk about this all the time on your channel. But is there ever grounds for walking away from the church because of narcissistic abuse?
Yes. 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 I mean, we look at how God took different people out of, you know, systems. God took Abraham out of the family, and we don't realize, like, we are the ecclesia. God took his spirit out of the church at Shiloh. He took his spirit. He took the Ark of the Covenant away. And I just talked about this in a TikTok. So he took the Ark of the Covenant, he took his spirit out of that church, and God will take his spirit out. All his spirit is not in all of these churches. There's a such spirit as a Ichabod spirit. All right. And I forget which scripture it is, but I think it was Eli had a son, and his son, the mother named him Ichabod, meaning where is God's glory? So God's glory is not in these places. If there's corruption, if there's sin, God said these are synagogues of Satan. These are people who have who are false prophets in wolves in sheep's clothing. Jesus prepared us for these things. We just don't adhere to them. But he prepared us for this day and age, and we're living in Revelation. We're living out the last days. So we see that false prophets are all among us, and that was the goal of Jezebel. That is the goal of the narcissistic, what the world calls narcissistic personality disorder. The Jezebel spirit is to silence the voice of the false prophets so they can be able to do whatever it is that they want to do, to lead into sexual immorality, corruption, idolatry, harlotry, worshiping false gods, worshiping false idols. That is Jezebel's job. So if the true prophets aren't there saying dismantling their systems, then they can be able to do what to bring corruption into the land. And this is what we see with this Jezebel spirit. We are supposed to be on post. We are supposed to be saying things and what God has put in our mouth to say. But if they silence us with this narcissistic spirit, you know what I mean, with this Jezebel spirit, then it's easier for them to do their job. But to answer your question, God's spirit is not in all of these churches. And because we lack discernment, a lot of us, we're not able to discern a wolf from a sheep. We're not able to discern a pastor whose job is to shamar, whose job is, which means, shepherd in Greek. A pastor's job is to lead the flock, is to protect the flock. So if I come to you and you're with abuse and your suggestion is to stay and pray, then I know because I have discernment and I have the discerning spirits that you are a wolf in sheep's clothing, because a pastor and a pastor's job is to gird and protect the flock, not to protect your best interest, not to protect yourself. So God is leading people out of these churches. That's what ecclesia means. We are the church. So ecclesia means to call out in Greek. All right. So when we do that, I mean, when we adhere to God's word, we already know that a lot of times we're going to be called out of these places because we're the true prophets. We're there to ring the alarm. And as long as you're ringing the alarm and you're not going along with status quo, people don't want you around. So God will lead you where he, has you to disrupt the system or whatever the case is, whatever your mission is in the fivefold. But yes, to answer your question, yes, God is leading people out. Not every church is sent from God. Some of these people are appointed by man and not anointed by God. And it shows. And if you sit under that person, then you are just as wrong. God will call you out of there if you listen to him. Mm-hmm. I know I just said a mouthful. No, I'm passionate about that. Look.
Yes, thank you for going there. I think it's the very same disposition, right? When we are saying we have to be willing to take a critical look at our parent, call out abuse for what it is, and walk away from it. No longer try to figure out how to rationalize it and accept it into our life, even if it's coming from our parent. That spreads, that trickles down to these other areas of our life. And I think because Black women in America, right, where traditionally we are the church, right? We hold up the church, the four walls church. And so the idea that we would walk away from it, that we would take that critical look and take a step out of it and take our faith with us, right? Like nobody is saying you have to leave your faith when you walk away from church. That they actually can be two different things, that a lot of the traditions we've come to accept and embrace and refuse to question are inherently abusive and don't actually have our best interest at heart. That starts to scare some people.
It does.
Yes.
So true.
Yes.
That's good. And what you said about Black women, we are fiercely loyal. You want to meet some loyal people, Black women. We've been loyal to men. We're loyal to everybody but ourselves. You know what I mean? We are loyal, and we can be loyal and wrong. You can be loud and wrong, and that's what a lot of us, we're loyal even to our detriment. We're loyal to men to our detriment we shouldn't be, who are not godly men. We're loyal to godly jobs and systems and all of this, while being disloyal to ourselves. So we got to check that. And when you don't love yourself, you don't know how to love yourself, you will be fiercely loyal to the wrong thing. Yeah. So we have to waken up. We have to awaken. Yeah.
Did you have a learning curve? Any behaviors you had to unlearn around learning how to love yourself?
Yes. Like I was in the wilderness. Like you see the woman you see today, like this is not who I was a few years ago. Like I said this last night on Clubhouse, like I had to unlearn everything and relearn by the Holy Spirit. Like when God took me in a wilderness journey, but I had to embrace it. And it doesn't feel good. But I went through self-deliverance. God delivered me from some traits of pride and shame and rejection. Anytime you're dealing with Jezebel, you're going to have a spirit of rejection that you need to be delivered from. So I had to go through deliverance and therapy. to help me process. Now, I'm not one of those ones that say I believe in therapy, but God, sitting with Holy Spirit is really what helped me. But therapy helped me to process everything that I had been through. So I went through deep cognitive behavior therapy or processing therapy. And really all it was, now that I look about it, it was dismantling the strongholds that had been resurrected in my mind. It was breaking down the devil's systems in my mind, you know, of rejection. Oh, you're not good enough. You're unworthy. So the more I sat with God and read his word, he began to tell me who I was so it could counteract the strongholds that had been placed in my mind. So yeah, but it was definitely a learning curve. I just said this on my friend's podcast, like when I go back and read my journals, I'm like, I was in a dark place. Like, who were you? And that's why I'm forever grateful, why I will forever proclaim God's goodness, because he brought me a mighty long way. So if somebody is in this, like, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself. You may see, and I remember like watching YouTube videos, it wasn't a lot of people who were talking about narcissism from a biblical perspective then, but I would watch, you know, certain channels and I would just be like, man, I want to be like that. Like, I want to be healed and able to talk about this. Now, did I know where I was? Little did I know, I didn't know what God had planned for me. I never thought that. Like, I'm an introvert by nature, you know what I mean? But yeah, when I looked at them, I'll be like, man, it must feel good to be in that place. So if you're one of those ones and you're looking at Dani or looking at myself and like, dang, I don't maybe not want to make it your life's work, but I want to get to a point where I'm healed. Just, you got to be patient with yourself. You can't bypass the process. You can't. And it's ugly and it's hard and it's challenging. Healing from narcissistic abuse, I will never be healed as long as I will always, it's layered. And the minute you cross one layer, it's like, oh, here comes another one. Oh, I know about this narcissist. I know about the covert or the over. Oh, here comes another one. He'll send a narcissistic friend, a frenemy. He'll send some, you know, the enemy will send it. They'll just keep coming at you. But the more you heal, narcissists can't stay around a healed person for very long. They're going to shake themselves loose, or God will give you the discernment to know that there's a snake in your midst. So, but that healing process is forever ongoing. How about you?
That is such a good point. I say a lot of the same things. Like I always tell clients, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. You're making a huge decision about your life. You're going to shift your identity. You're going to become a different person as a result of this decision to walk away from abuse.
Yes.
And the healing process, I describe it as a spiral staircase, because you will come to the same place, but on a different level.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you're doing, you will think you're losing your mind. Like, I thought that I processed this already. I thought I healed this. You know, I prayed about it. I had this whole session with my therapist about it. Why am I still dealing with this same issue? Why am I still struggling to love myself on this level? Why am I still struggling to be this person that I know I want to be? And if you're not kind to yourself, if you're not giving grace and being patient, then you will take out that frustration on your inner child and stall your healing.
Right. That's good. Yeah. That's good. Taking care of because your inner child will try to take over. And that's what I had to realize. Like, I did do exercises with my clients and do exercise, even with myself. I'll be like, okay, little Shannon, like I have to be kind to myself, because if not, this is why you see people who have a lot of rage and anger. They're not allowing themselves to. You gotta allow yourself to be mad. I don't judge my feelings. I'm not my feelings. Not every emotion is mine. So I sit with myself when I'm feeling funky or something like that. Like, what is this? When those triggers come up, I'm like, why is this triggering me? And a lot of times it's because I'm being hard, because you got to renew your subconscious mind, because a lot of times that voice of my mother or whoever is trying to emerge. So it's up to me to cast down that stronghold and say, nope, you're not getting in here. you're not, why am I feeling this way? What is the evidence of this thought? When you start to ruminate and get stuck. Because if you don't keep going up the staircase, you'll get stuck on the step, and you'll just keep repeating and then here comes more narcissists. You'll keep repeating the lesson until you learn to, okay, this is what I need. Sit with yourself, be okay. You got to master being alone.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people, a lot of our women can't do. They, especially Black women, they cannot master being alone. When you can master your emotions, when you can master being alone, you are reaching a whole other level of healing,
yes.
You know, and a lot of people can't do that. They can't sit with themselves. They can't be alone. They got to have a man. They got to feel like if they don't have a husband and kids, then that's law, you know, that they're less than. Those are all lies.
Yes.
Lies.
Alone and at rest. What you just said was a perfect description of reparenting, right? So the process we go through when we go no contact, a part of it is self-orphaning and reparenting. And that's what I hear you describing, right? First, you have to break down the systems of thought that you used to operate in. And then you have to do exactly what you described, right? Check in with that inner child. So why am I feeling off? Why am I feeling triggered? Let me just sit with this discomfort. That might look like, let me just take a bath and put on some instrumental music. I'm not going to crowd my mind with words, right? I'm not going to watch a show. I'm just going to sit with myself and see what myself has to say, right? You give that inner child some room to talk to you. Just like if you had a child and they start crying, you would just stuff them in a closet. Like, I'm going to ignore that you have a problem. Let me sit down and find out what's the matter with you so that you'll stop crying. Right. And when we are alone and at rest, our inner child has our attention. And if we're not practiced in being with her and taking care of her, she'll just annoy us. She'll just hate us, right? We'll resent her for needing our attention, but we would rather just be at peace, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and be feeling in a bad mood. I don't want to be discontent. I would like to just be happy. But I'm not willing to face you and do the work that I have to do to get that happiness.
Right. So now you're picking up, that's so good. So now if you don't sit with yourself at rest, you're picking up where your mother left off. And how horrible is it to go through that? And then now her soundtrack is playing in your mind. So now you dealt with this as a child, and now she's not even here, but you're still doing it to yourself. I'll be doggone.
Yep. And you'll do it to your kids if you have children and don't heal it. Right. That's how it becomes generational, right? That shift, that turn that you're talking about of just shutting down all the service that we do to feel validated, right? To stop reaching out to these different systems for validation and just be with ourselves, our flaws, our shortcomings, right? Whatever the emotional gaps are, just sit with them. And that's how we really begin to heal. But that hurts so much at the very beginning when you don't know what you're doing, when everything is raw and you're alone. That's overwhelming. And I think a lot of us choose anything but that.
Yeah, that's good. And that's how you end up going back into it. Dani, we gotta talk about this. People who have been no contact and then they don't learn to master those things and they go back.
Yes.
And I'm like, I've seen people do this and I'm like, I mean, you can't do anything but respect their choice. And then they come back and now they're worse off. Because you don't understand what the spiritual implications of doing that is. You know, when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, is seeking rest in you, is seeking rest somewhere. And so he said, I'm going back to my home to which I came. It's going back to you. So it's coming back with itself and 7 spirits more wicked than itself. So people don't understand when when a narcissistic parent calls and they're nice now. They're nice for right now. They're nice during the holidays. Oh, the holidays, you really have to have a plan of attack. But when they or they send that flying monkey or that aunt or that uncle or whoever, you gotta have a plan. You gotta have a plan of attack, because if you don't, they're just trying to lure you back in to the cycle. And I've seen people go back and now they are I'm like, oh, I wish you would have just stayed on the course. But, everybody we all have to work out our own healing journey. So they go back. And when they come back, Dani, I'm like, they are a mess.
Yeah, that really does turn you around. And,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you respect the decision, because what I find is that most of the time those people go no contact again. It's
Mm-hmm.
just much harder. And now
Yeah.
they have a new mountain to climb before they can get back to the place in their healing journey they were in before. But a dog only returns to his vomit so many times. Like, you're not, eventually you will come to the point that you get it. You have to exhaust all the combinations, right? Like, okay, we tried it backwards, forwards, sideways, upside down. It's not going to work. Right. So now when people say, like, well, have you tried therapy? Have you talked to her about this? Have you reached out? Well, just like, you have no idea how many different ways I've tried to solve this Rubik's Cube. It's not going to
Right.
happen. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and you got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
It's like trying to tell like a woman who's in a abusive situation. Like, you can tell, girl, leave him. Girl, do this. She ain't listening to you till she gets sick and tired of
Right.
being sick and tired. And when she does that, the end. So it's, you can be there. You can be supportive if you choose to, or not. But when she gets sick and tired of smelling that vomit,
Mhm.
that's when she'll leave.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the parent.
And when you go back, I think it's like the narcissist knows that you're going to leave again, that you're going to try. But the thing that you have done by going back is you've invalidated the work that you've done up until that point, because now your convictions, the distance that you built up between the two of you have undermined it. And so when you come back with those same convictions, because the pattern is still continuing, it's like, well, yeah, but you've already gone no contact before, right? Like, you now question yourself whether or not you're strong enough to stick it out and stay no contact. So it usually takes a blow up, right?
Right.
There has to be something really motivating that happens for you to just say, okay, I'm not going back. That was a big enough explosion that I'm going to be able to walk away and stay away even when I miss my mom and I want to go back.
Right. Right. That's good. And now I thank God. At the time, when that happened, when my brother, came to my home, like, I went in my closet and I just screamed, like, this hurt. Like, I was surprised myself. You know what I mean? I was like, why? God, I said, you taking my brother too? I was like, you take, like, I was like, that cry with God. And he was just like, I have you. He was like, do you trust me? Like, I heard it, do you trust me? Do you trust me? And I was like, I was mad at the time, but then, that's not that 3-day came, but you're right. I had to just say, I trust you. I trust you, God. I don't know what's going to happen from here, but now I thank God for that blow up. Yeah. It hurt like heck to experience that and to see, my family member like that, and to see how he was with me. And we had been like supposedly like this all of our lives. And to see him turn on me like that, I was like, whoa. But now I needed that, because I needed that blow up. Because had it not happened, even though I made the decision to go no contact with my mother, I wouldn't have stayed away. Right. It showed me how people felt about me, and that I believe them. Yeah. When people say you act a certain, I believe you don't love me. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. It's no reflection of me. Right. That's you. So, but it did. I needed that explosion to happen to really solidify. Like, you couldn't pay me Bill Gates money to go back.
That's so good. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Is there any piece here that we haven't touched on as far as the fallout from going no contact, or any significant phase of your healing journey?
Yeah, the smear campaign. Just get ready for it. Just get ready for it.
Yes.
Yeah, get ready for it. Even if it's your mother, you're gonna be like, because you're looking at her like, this is my mother. She's not looking at you the same way. And that's what we think, well, I wouldn't do this to you. No, you wouldn't do this because you're a rational, normal minded person. But a demonized person, a person who has those spirits, that personality, they'll do whatever, because all that matters is narcissistic supply.
Mhm.
So even if that's your mother, she's not looking at you as your mother, as her child. And then there's going to be glimpses. So you gotta fight to stay in reality. There are going to be times where, like, I remember the good times. I'm a lot like her in a lot of different ways. So I acknowledge the good parts. It doesn't mean like, oh, I hate all of her. I don't hate her, period. But people don't, two things can be true. That's what I want you to remember at all this. Two things can be true. I can love my mother and I can choose me. I can love my mother and I can go no contact. I can love God and I can choose to walk away from this church. It doesn't mean I can love this what I do and choose to walk away from this job. I can, even if whatever the situation is, I can love her. I still remember the good times that we had on I don't celebrate holidays anymore, but I still remember the time that we share, and I allow myself to feel that, and I don't judge myself for feeling that. I allow it to pass through my body. And I'm like, oh, that was a good time. But I also remember the not so good times. I also remember the manipulation. So me feeling the good times doesn't ever make me want to go back into the burning bush or the burning building.
Yes, that's
And
such a good
do that.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because you do remember the good times. And I think a hack that I have come around to is that if you can learn to dip into those good times and take the positive energy that is there in those memories, but not go back for more abuse, then it's like you get to keep the best of your mother with you, right? Because she's in you. You're a part of her. So you can still look back and see those good times and still love her and still appreciate the positive memories that you have, but also be clear with yourself that she's not somebody to be in your life. Then it's like you beat the system, because you protect yourself and you can still appreciate your mom. She can still be with you. The best of her can be with you, even though, she's no longer in your life.
Right. That's good. I like that. Yeah. So it's like you beat the system. I love what you said about that. And because if you don't, you'll become bitter. And I refuse, you know what I mean? Whatever I go through, I've made in my mind ahead of time. Even if you treat me bad, even if somebody betrays my trust, I'm still going to be who I'm going to be. I'm going to change how I move around you. I'm not going to have you around me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not a fool, but I'm not going to allow what you did to me to dictate who God has made me. And that is a choice to make. That is a choice. So you don't become resentful and bitter of those experiences, but you use them to create the best version of you. You learn the lessons. Because now, and it's just like when Paul said, when I prayed, I used to pray to God, take this pain away from me, especially when I was divorcing the sociopath. Like, it felt like I couldn't breathe, like my heart was going to come out. You know what I mean? It felt, because it was a soul tie there. That's so you break that soul tie, that trauma bond. It's physiological, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's all of that. So I could literally feel that in my body. But I was asking God, take this pain away from me. And he healed me from that broken heart, but he still also allows me to have a thorn. So that way I never get prideful. I never think that I can make it without him. I thank God every day for getting me out of that situation. And now I can say it was good that I was afflicted. I hate what I've been through. I don't wish it on anybody. But at the same time, if I didn't, I would be unawakened, and I wouldn't have the wisdom and the knowledge that I have now. I wouldn't have the relationships. It took the toxic ones for me to appreciate, and for me to know when one was unhealthy. So when I see that now, you're gone. I don't play with you. You know what I mean? So it took me being in those situations to gain the knowledge and the experiences from them. So
yes, that's so good. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to imagine the woman who has not yet gone no contact, If you can remember what that feels like when you see all the signs, right? You don't realize that you're gathering your evidence for why you need to go no contact, but you're seeing it, you're beginning to piece it together. You start to kind of consider making a change. What are the things that you would say to yourself? You know, if you could speak to yourself when you were in that place now, when you were still being controlled by the fear and the guilt and worried that maybe your life would fall apart if your mom did not approve of how you were living it, what would you say to yourself in that space?
Oh, that's good. You really have to talk to your inner child, you know. Um, I guess if I was speaking, let's say I'm speaking to my inner child, I would say, you're going to be okay without her.
Mhm.
Like, you're going to be okay. I
Mhm.
know you think you grew up with her. Like, you don't know life without her yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's the one person who from before you were born you're with. But
Mhm.
you got to know that even if she passes, even if she goes on, oh, we got to talk about the guilt too. Make
Yeah.
sure I write a note about that. But even if she passes, even if you go no contact, you're going to be okay. I tell myself there's nothing, even when I was in the military, I used to tell myself there's nothing that's going to happen today that God can't handle. You know what I mean? So nothing is going to happen in your life that God has not made provision for you for. And that's even with narcissistic parents. So when my mother and father forsake me, God will take me in. And when I tell you, God is going to take you in, you may lose your biological mother
Mhm.
physically, you may lose her. You may lose her, but you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's all going to work out if you trust the process and you allow yourself to be healed. So I would just say, because it's really your inner child speaking up and being afraid. So I would say, tell your inner child that now God, you're going to allow God to protect your inner child. You're going to protect your inner child instead of your inner child running the show. Now you're the adult in charge of protecting your inner child. So that's why I'm fiercely protective of little Shannon. Don't
Yes.
mess with little Shannon. You don't
Yes.
do
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Right. You don't mess with Dani. You don't do that. You know what I mean? So now is the time for you to protect yourself, and it's going to be okay. Even if your mother walks away, even if your family walks away, you're going to be okay. So I guess I can just leave it there.
Yeah, that's really good. And I love that you focused on the inner child because I find that when we talk to our inner child,
Mm-hmm.
we boil the truth down to the simplest terms, right?
Right.
And you're going to be okay without her is exactly what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And something I tell clients and something I mentioned in the conversation I had recently with Stephanie Perry is that you have a whole person inside of you that you haven't met yet. Like the best version of yourself is on the other side of your healing journey. And if you stay shackled to the abuse, you will not have the energy, the capacity to become that woman that you truly are. And you mentioned something earlier about if you don't give your inner child the attention that she needs, she will take over. Can you
Mm-hmm.
speak to that? Because I know what you're talking about, but what does it look like when your inner child hijacks your adult life?
I see it all the time in different clients. They're rageful, they're resentment because most of the time when they're rageful like that, they're mad at their mother. You know, they haven't allowed themselves to really to work through. It's like two different sets. One is they're still trying to be I'm still trying to be the perfect image of who my mother wants me to be. They say all the right things. I'm just looking at, you had to discern. I'm still looking like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, but I see the rage underneath it. But they're trying to say all the right things because they have their mother's voice
Right.
inside of them. So you have those people, the perfection, and then you have the people who are just rageful. They look, you say something wrong, they will cut you.
Mm-hmm.
Both are dealing with rejection. Both people in their inner child is running. It's just one is passive. It's passive and passive aggressive, and then the other one is just aggressive. So we see this in reality shows, we see this in people around us. One sees inwardly and the other one sees outwardly, but both are, one is covert, one is overt. Now I'm not necessarily saying narcissists, but they handle their what their pain differently. They handle their emotions differently. One turns inward on themselves and the other one turns outward on people. But it's this, the inner child is still the soundtrack and their subconscious ruling the show. Their inner child has taken over. And instead of them allowing themselves for the passive aggressive, instead of saying, no, you know, it hurt me. They don't want to be vulnerable. You know, they don't want to be vulnerable. They've learned to just kind of coax over things because it's safe. Their inner child is safe when I neglect my feelings. My inner child is safe when I shrink and I disappear. So my inner child has learned, oh no, no, don't speak up, don't speak up, don't speak up. That's your inner child, you know, no, don't say anything. Because when now, you know, when I was little, you know, this happened with my mother, I've learned to be passive. And then the other ones learn, I have to protect myself at all costs. You say something wrong, I'm snapping. Their inner child is a bully. These are the bullies. So they're either way, their inner child, both inner childs are running the show. It's just they've just learned different ways to cope with the trauma. It's just different mechanisms that they've learned.
Right. Because if we're not willing to, like we said earlier, sit with the discomfort, willing to give our inner child that center stage to just do whatever they need to do, you know, even though it may be uncomfortable or ugly or inconvenient. If we don't do that, we have to continue to not see them to make the system continue to run, right? If I don't acknowledge you right now and I go 5 more years being abused, I really can't acknowledge you in 5 years because now we have so much more to talk about. There's so much more at stake. I have to continue to not see you. Right. And I think that's why when we go no contact, especially family members who are older, it's like you've been buying into this system for so long that here I come, the black sheep of the family, wanting to, you know, highlight everything that you've been trying not to see. It's so much easier for you to band together and attack me and just try to, you know, hide my light. Because if you see my light, you have to see everything else. And it's going to cost you a whole shift in your identity.
Yes. Oh, that's good. That is so good. And the temper tantrum, it's just like when you see a child on the floor, just let them have a temper tantrum.
Right.
When you get up,
you finish.
You know? Right. You finish. And then they're going to look at you like, you know, so just let them, okay, are you done yet? Okay, you're not done. Go ahead, get it out. Get it out. So that's why to the person that's resentful, to the person who's, get it out. But you got to learn healthy coping mechanisms, but it needs to get out because your body is keeping the score and you're not being real with yourself. So your body is like, your mind is like attacking itself, you know? So just let the child have a temper tantrum and then get up.
Yes, I think so. A good point that I think is so important for Black women is that if we are not willing to address the trauma, right? If we're so afraid to talk about the ugly truth, and as Black women, we carry some of the ugliest truth there is to carry, right? We bear this emotional brunt that others do not.
Right.
If we're not willing to surface it, it backs up one way or the other. So not only can your inner child hijack your life, and that can sometimes look like the overt, covert expression you mentioned, but it can look like substance abuse. It can look like suicide. It can look like abusive relationships with partners, reckless decisions. It can look like neglecting your self-care, but it can also look like stuff like hypertension and stress and high blood pressure, right? And insomnia. There's so many different ways that our body will use to get our attention, right? If we refuse to give the inner child space, she's going to fight for her attention some other way. And so a quick plug for acupuncture. I'm sure I mentioned it to you, but I tried acupuncture for PTSD for 9 months after I had been in therapy for 2.5 years. And it surfaced pain I didn't realize I was carrying. You know, like I cried tears I didn't realize I needed to cry because I was backlogged. You know, there was just all this pain that I had pushed down for good, seemingly, and now I was upsetting the balance by trying to process and get back to an equilibrium. And yeah, it pushed so much to the surface I did not realize was there. And that can be a natural way to treat some of the other health concerns that Black women are prone to that really could have a root in trauma. And so I think that is a fair mention.
Yes. Yeah. You got to face it.
Mhm.
And you can't mask it with success. I tried that. Like, 'cause when you grow up, I
Mhm.
grew up in a home where, well, for me, it was the perfectionism. It was I'm going to show you, I'm not going to be like you.
Mhm.
But that's still a trauma response. You know what I mean? It's still a trauma response. Well, I'm not going to depend on anybody. I can't depend on y'all. So I'm just gonna go out here and do it all. I won't ask anybody for help. That's
Yep.
a trauma response. So
Yep.
now I'm learning to, yeah, I'm a giver. So now I learn to receive. Now I know I'm worthy enough to ask for help. So you're right. If you, whatever it is, you have to face it. Or it's gonna face you, it's gonna show up in your relationships. And then when it shows up in your children, it shows up in your work relationships. It shows up in every which way,
Yes.
So you're right. You have to have a outlet. You have to have healthy coping mechanisms, and you got to face it. You got to face it, or it's gonna deal with you in successful materialism, taking care of other people. That's what Black women do. We just take care of everybody else.
Right.
We project, well, I'm gonna do them the way I want it to be done. But you have to worry about that, because you'll pick up strays, and you'll think that you are a rehab center for broken men and broken people.
Yeah.
And we're not here to save. Jesus came to set the captives free. We're not Jesus. Look, we turned them to Jesus, but I'm not out here trying to save anybody. I try to help people. I do, what God has me to do, but I lead them to God, because he can do it all. I'm just a vessel. But for Black women, we put on our cape and we want to save the world. We want to say we on the streets marching. We're on front. We put ourselves on the front line in place of the men. That's another conversation. But we want to do it all. We want to save everybody, and that our heart, it comes someplace at time. Sometimes it comes from a good place, and sometimes it comes from an unhealthy place. Even helping people. That's what I had to learn. I was like, wait a minute. It made me check like codependency and things. I was like, am I doing this because I'm trying to receive love? I had to check my motives for doing things. Am I doing this out of the goodness of my heart because I'm led by the Holy Spirit, or am I doing this to get love?
Right.
Like, you gotta, like, things happen, you gotta be on yourself. Like, and I say you gotta be in tune with your star player. Like, what is the motive? Because we think we're such good people. Are you as good as you think you are? Or are you doing that because you're trying to people please? You're trying to get people to love you. You're trying, because that's what you had to do when you were little. And God had to check me on that. So that's something that I'm learning not to do. To check my motives.
Yeah, that's why that reparenting is so important, because when you can give your own self-validation, then you don't have to seek it through from other people. People pleasing becomes less rewarding, right?
Yeah.
Then you're willing to make controversial decisions that protect your boundaries and your peace,
Mhm.
and other people don't really have to respond or get it, right? You're able to just validate yourself and be independent in that manner rather than codependent.
Absolutely. But you're gonna have to face that. And there was something else you said. You said something about being the best version of you. And I heard this video the other day. My stepsister sent it to me. I should say my bonus sister sent it to me. And it was or she posted it. It was Lauren Hill. And she was saying, like, I haven't even met me yet. Like, you every time you meet me, you're gonna meet a different version of me. you know and
Mhm.
that's how it is when you get out from under this. You're like, whoa, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know if you're struggling to find out what your gifts are. Once you go no contact, you'll begin to find out things about yourself. God, because God now, he trusts you to reveal you to you.
Mhm.
He's our manufacturer. So when I saw that video, I was like, that's so good. Like, you're getting introduced to you. Like, the me you met a year ago, she's here. I'm still here. But now I'm really coming into God's plan and his version of who I'm supposed to be.
Right.
So yeah, you're gonna meet the best version of you.
Right. The version definitely does not suit your narcissistic abuser, because that person cannot be controlled. And that person is not dependent on the narcissist for anything, so they have no hooks, right, to get in you, and that's the
Right.
accountability for them.
Right. So, right, that's good. So the more you heal, they're going to slink away. And that scares people. That scares people. Like, in some sense, you know, when we're unhealed, we want that. We want them to depend on us, or we want to depend on them, or we think that we're dependent on them for survival and to make it, you know. But you're going to find out, like, you never needed them all this time.
Yeah.
They needed you. That's what you're going to find out. Like, all this time, I didn't even need you like that. Yes, if it's a mother, I needed you to survive. But once I'm an adult, I'm a functioning person, I didn't need you like I think I did. You just made me think that I needed you. A lot of people are parentified or you know, I see women who mother is just very controlling, like they don't know how to do anything. And once you know, you get away, and that's the scary part, you know, for a lot of people, because their mother has made them feel like a child in some instances. Either they were parentified or their mother made them feel like a little girl.
Infantilized.
Yes. What is it called?
Infantilized.
Yes, there you go. Right. So for those, they can't make a decision without calling their mother. Like, their mothers, they could be 40, they could be married, they could be in relationships, they could be single, whatever, and their mother still runs their life. Yes. And they hear their mother's voice. So, and then their mother can come in and ruin their relationship. Their mother is like the third wheel in their relationships. Their mothers control them. And these women, like, usually they're going to go to a narcissist. And sometimes the two narcissists will fight for control over you, or they'll link up to destroy you.
Yep, one or the other. And that's where the guilt comes in, right? We touched on it earlier. When your mother has known from the beginning that at a certain point you're not going to need her anymore.
Right.
You don't know that, but she knows that. And if you look closely, you see that she has not built a relationship with you that's meant to last beyond you being able to take care of your basic needs, right? You're not in a relationship with someone who can respect you as an adult person. They're not interested in your development and like how you're growing, getting to know you and bonding with you. The relationship is held together based on control, fear, shame, and guilt. Right? You stay because of what would happen if you walked away, not because you feel loved and appreciated and it's feeding you, right? At a certain point, your mom knows that you're going to walk away. And so she does things to keep you, like, she'll sabotage your skill sets so that you think you need her. And if you think you need her for every big decision, then your life falls into crisis. If you walk away from her, how are you supposed to move forward and do anything?
Right.
Without being crippled by guilt.
Right. That's so good. And when I look back on it, I was like, because it was times where I went no contact. I didn't know what it was. Like, I didn't talk to her for one time for, I think, almost 2 years, a year or something like that before. And it's been times. And what always brought me back is I would feel guilty. If she passed, I would feel guilty.
Yes.
And so, God dealt with me on that. Yes. So if I told you to walk away, you got to walk away. You have to walk away from this, because if you don't, then you're in an idolatrous relationship. You know, you're in idolatry with someone who is not going to submit to me. So you have to make a choice. And then I had to deal with the guilt. So people, we stay in these relationships because, you know, I don't want to feel the guilt if this person passes while we're no contact. So you have to deal with that. You know what I mean? And so that's why God had me grieve. It's one thing to grieve people who are dead. It's another thing to grieve people who are alive. So I had to allow myself and lay boundaries with myself. Okay, even if she passes away, I'm not going to the funeral. No, I'm not going. This is me. See, that sounds mean to some people. So some people, I sound so mean. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But look, this is me. You know, my nieces and nephews, I was the aunt who always had the kids. You know what I mean? So even if graduations, I made up in my mind, I'm not going. You know what I mean? Because I love these people while they were in my life. They're no longer in my life. I've already mourned them. I've already given them their flowers. I gave my mother her flowers while she was in my life. I was a good daughter to her. I love her still. I just love her from a distance. So if she passes away, she's in the casket. You're doing that to look good to other people.
Right.
I'm not here to please you. I'm not here to please other people. It'll look good. Pay the respects. The person is gone. So why you have to get to the root of why you're doing that. You know what I mean? So no. And going back around some people who left me like literally like Joseph, like dug a pit for me and tried to assassinate my character, and you want me to go back into that? No, I forgive them, but I'm not going back around them, and I'm not going to allow guilt to bait me back into that. So
because if you do that, you tell your inner child, yes, I know you were abused, I know that you're not safe here, but because of guilt, we're going to go back.
right.
Guilt today, you need to just keep your mouth shut again, right? I'm asking you to submit yourself to abuse again, and I'm sending you the message that your well-being is not important enough for me to take a stand and just abstain from this situation or from these people. And that really is that reparenting. When you love yourself, then your commitment is to your inner child and not to pleasing everybody else.
Right. So you are gonna have to deal with that, and reframe what you reframe society. You gotta put society away, like societal norms and cultural norms. You have to deal with that because people are gonna say there all these colloquialisms, all these sayings. They're gonna throw the Bible at you, misuse of scripture. Like they're gonna throw everything at you. So you have to. I know for me, I was like, listen. This is me. I'll listen. And matter of fact, I'll listen. Well, I did listen, but then I knew in my mind, like, I'm not going to talk about this with this person ever again. Like, I'm not, when they bring this up, nope, that's a boundary. I'm not, I respect your opinion, but we have a difference of opinion. You know what I mean? So you do have to find a way to deal with cultural norms, with societal norms, with all these things that are put on Black women, all the stigmas, all the expectations. You have to find a way to deal with, what to tell yourself and how to reframe that.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Something that you touched on that I want to highlight before we start to wrap up is you have to mourn your parent while they're living, right? Because I think the empowerment is in doing it while they're alive. Because if you wait until they pass away before you start to resolve the issues, then really, you leave yourself at a detriment because you never broke that tie. You never did, you never executed the move of cutting abuse out of your life, of putting up that boundary and protecting it. You allowed yourself to go until you no longer had an opportunity to be abused. And now that they're gone, they still hold some power, right? In some way, your life will continue to be all about them because now you're mourning them on top of missing the role that they played as your abuser, right? On top of being traumatized. And so if you can face that while they're still alive, while you still have the option to bail and call them anytime, you want to, you empower yourself because you do that work of choosing not to be abused while you still have the option.
So good. So good. So good. I hope somebody's listening to this. And it reminds me of Mommy Dearest. The crazy part is I used to call her Mommy Dearest. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, hey, Mommy. I didn't know, and we used to watch these movies, Imitation of Life, like these mother-daughter movies. We would watch these things. And have you seen Mommy Dearest? Mm-hmm. Right. So many times, right? And you remember how Joan, that's a classic mother, like narcissist, Flowers in the Attic, all the movies we used to watch. But Mommy Dearest is one that just stands out. If you want to know what a narcissistic, she was an overt, I think. You want to know what that looks like, watch that movie. But you remember in the end where Joan had passed away, and I think they were reading like her will.
Mm-hmm.
And she left Christina nothing. And I was like, dang, that's a cold-blooded woman right there.
Yeah.
Even in death, from beyond the grave, she was still controlling Christina. So if I was Christina, I would have never showed up to her reading.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't even give her, you're not even getting, but that's me. But some people show up to the burial, they show up to the bedside when they're on their last, they thinking that, oh, the narcissist is going to get nicer as they get older. Demons don't get old, get nicer. No. So you have to let go of the fantasy in your mind, whatever that fantasy is in your mind, that on the deathbed, as they get old, they're going to remember who I am. You got to let go of the fantasy. You have to talk to your inner child and tell your inner child, because that's what it really is. It's your inner child wanting at the last minute to validate them. No, so that's why it's so important to grieve them while they're still alive. That way your inner child is already prepared. Now, we never know I don't know how I'm going to react if that happens, if she goes before, or however that happens. You never know, but I want to give myself as much grounding as I can right now, and be honest with my inner child right now. Let go of the fantasy that she's gonna see your worth now. She's gonna see everything that you've accomplished in your life and say, oh, this is the daughter that no, let go of the fantasy. God has already told me that. God has already told me that. God has already sent other people in my life to when I'm down, to validate me like that. You know what I mean? And I validate myself like that. So let go of the fantasy that mommy dearest on her deathbed is going to see your worth. And if you take care of her, if you do these things, that she's now going to see your worth. Let go of that fantasy.
Right. Take yourself off that hook. And that's kind of the beauty of going no contact while they're living. You get to see how they respond to the no contact. Because someone who's not narcissistic, who loves you and cares for you, you just become distant and you disappear. At minimum, they're going to want to know you're okay. Like, are you alive? Is something wrong? Do you need help? Oh, okay, you're mad at me for something. What's the matter? Let's talk about it. Let's work it out, right? That's in a relationship that is healthy and built on mutual respect. But you find that your narcissistic parent does not care about what's wrong with you, why you're not talking to them. All they care about is you continuing to fall in line and play your role of responding to their control mechanisms. Right. So when one thing stops working, now you're not talking to them. Let me turn up the heat in these other relationships. Let me fire some shots via auntie, uncle, cousin, brother, sister, everybody else to reel them back in. And when you continue to resist that, they get increasingly angry, right? They kind of like start shape-shifting and losing it, right? In a really bizarre way sometimes, to where you get to see that there's a pity there. I think when you can see them, like, shrink them down to a little child having a tantrum, it helps you to walk away and realize you haven't missed out on anything, that you're making the right choice. And you don't get to see that if they're passed away, right? You don't get to, you might idealize how they would have responded because you never went through that process while they were living. Right. And your mention, so it's funny that you mentioned Mommy Dearest and Flowers in the Attic, because so right now on my website, new subscribers get something called the No Contact Toolkit. And that's a completely free toolkit that has some online resources for them. One thing that I put there is movies to watch when you want to see it, right? Because when you're learning about it, when you're facing it in your own life, it helps to meditate on it and to get yourself clear about it. You know, you kind of go through a phase where you need to learn about it. And so Mommy Dearest and Flowers in the Attic are both on that list. Flowers in the Attic is also a book. So, for people who want to read it, that's there. But I make some recommendations about books and movies to watch if you're wanting to just kind of see what it looks like, how it plays out in different situations. And both of those are on there. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's good. I love that No Contact Toolkit. I love that.
Yes. Well, I feel so recharged after talking to you, for sharing, for being willing to just open up and be vulnerable about something that is very personal. I appreciate the example that you set for not just Black women, but women in the church and women in general is we have to struggle to make those decisions that really respect our boundaries and honor us rather than everybody else. So thank you for being here, for sharing with us. I certainly look forward to connecting with you more. Maybe there are more conversations for us to have, as a result of this one, but just thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes. So everyone who tuned in, thank you for being here. If you made it all the way through this video, kudos to you. Share it with someone who you think may benefit. And if any of this resonated with you, you can certainly, subscribe. I'm Dani with no contact. Shannon, if you want to mention your channel or any information that people can use to connect with you.
Yes, Shannon. Shannon, if you need to email, support@narcfreeliving.com. And my website has a bunch of resources for whether it's narcissistic mother or relationship. I really focus on getting people out of those relationships. So you see, that's where me and Dani can tag team right there. So www.narcfreeliving.com, or you can email. And I'm on social media on all outlets at Narc Free Living LLC.
Perfect. So after this, you can send me some links that I'll put in the description for anyone who wants more information. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.